There exists a formula for success so powerful, so effective that those who know it rarely share it. It is not because they wish to keep you from it, but because most people simply would not believe it. It is simple yet profound. It is accessible to anyone yet applied by very few. Tonight, I want to share with you what I call the banned success formula. The secret rich people live by but seldom reveal. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There is a truth so plain and so profound that it has been hiding in front of us all along. We have heard fragments of it, we have seen glimpses of it, but very few have ever dared to live it. And those who have, those rare few we call successful. The banned success formula is not really banned at all, it is simply ignored. Rich people do not hide it out of malice. They hide it because most people refuse to believe anything so simple could yield anything so great. But here it is. Must become what we think about most of the time, and what we steadily act upon becomes our reality. That is the formula. That is the secret. The tragedy is that most men and women think about fear, worry, and limitation. They rehearse failure in their minds and then are astonished when failure appears in their lives. Meanwhile, the successful few fix their minds upon a goal with clarity, and they act in harmony with that picture until it is achieved. If you wish to join them, you must begin with a definite purpose. Take out a sheet of paper tonight and write down, as clearly as you can, what you want most. Not tomorrow, not someday, begin this very moment. That written goal will serve as the compass for your mind. Next, commit yourself to daily progress. A small, consistent action taken every single day compounds into astonishing results. Do not wait for luck, do not lean on chance, and do not hope that something outside yourself will change your circumstances. The moment you accept responsibility for your life, you hold the master key to your fortune. Finally, measure your success not only in money but in service. For wealth is nothing more than the shadow cast by value. The more people you serve, the more lives you improve, the greater your rewards will be, both financially and personally. Success is never an accident, it follows laws as certain as gravity. Just as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, just as the tide follows the pull of the moon, success responds to laws that are consistent, predictable, and unwavering. When people look at those who achieve greatness, they often assume it is luck, chance, or some hidden advantage that made the difference. Yet the truth is far more practical. Every successful individual has aligned themselves, whether consciously or unconsciously, with the principles that govern achievement. These laws are impartial. They do not bend for one person and break for another. They are available to all who choose to study and apply them with discipline and persistence. Think of gravity for a moment. You do not see it, you do not always think about it, but its presence governs every step you take. If you drop a stone, it falls. If you leap into the air, you return to the ground. Gravity is a silent force, dependable and unquestionable. In the same way, the laws of success are invisible but ever present. If you plant discipline, you reap growth. If you cultivate focus, you harvest results. If you consistently sow effort in the direction of a clear goal, success gravitates toward you as surely as an apple falls from a tree. The problem is not that success is hidden, but that so many ignore the laws and expect results without obedience to them. Greatness has always been the product of alignment with timeless truths. Persistence leads to mastery. Patience leads to compounded rewards. Clarity of purpose draws resources, people, and opportunities like iron filings to a magnet. The individual who recognizes this stops blaming chance and begins to take responsibility. They no longer wonder why others succeed while they remain stagnant, for they understand that success is not arbitrary. It is a law, and laws reward only those who abide by them. The farmer cannot reap in spring what he failed to sow in autumn. Likewise, the dreamer cannot harvest success if he has not consistently prepared the soil of his mind and labored with faith and dedication. Those who reach the summit of their ambitions understand that every thought, every habit, every small daily choice is part of the law at work. A negative thought consistently entertained pulls the dreamer down like a weight, just as surely as gravity pulls a stone to the ground. A positive thought, acted upon with conviction, lifts a man higher than he imagined, because it aligns him with the upward pull of growth, creation, and expansion. The universe does not deny success to anyone, but it requires payment in the currency of discipline, focus, and unwavering belief. Just as you cannot defy gravity without effort, you cannot expect to rise in life without aligning with the principles that govern achievement. Those who understand this stop searching for shortcuts and begin to practice the fundamentals. They study, they plan, they act, and they persevere. Success is no accident. It is earned by those who live in harmony with the very laws that have shaped every story of triumph in history. The mind, properly directed, becomes the richest resource on earth. Every great invention, every fortune, every advancement in human history first began as an idea. The skyscraper that touches the sky, the bridge that spans a river, the medicine that heals the sick, all of them were once intangible thoughts, fragile sparks in the minds of men and women who dared to give them form. The human mind has no measurable limits. Its capacity to create, imagine, and solve is beyond anything material. Gold can be spent, land can be exhausted, and wealth can be lost, but the mind, properly cultivated and directed, continues to generate value endlessly. It is the only resource that increases in richness the more it is used. Most people drift through life unaware of the true power they carry between their ears. They allow the mind to wander without discipline, feeding it confusion, doubt, and fear. When left unchecked, the mind works against its owner, magnifying insecurities and building invisible prisons of limitation. But when the mind is given a definite purpose, when it is focused on creation rather than destruction, it becomes a tool of immense productivity. A clear goal channels the mind's energy the way a lens concentrates sunlight into fire. With direction, thought turns into plans, plans turn into actions, and actions build results that reshape lives. The richest men and women of history did not always begin with money, but they began with thought. Andrew Carnegie envisioned vast steel empires long before the first beam was forged. Thomas Edison saw the possibility of light in every home before the first bulb flickered. These individuals understood that the true capital was not in their pockets but in their minds. They invested time in thinking, in imagining, in solving problems, and because their minds were directed with precision, wealth flowed as a natural consequence. The same principle remains unchanged today. Every business, every technological advancement, every artistic creation begins with someone using the hidden wealth of the mind to bring forth something new. To direct the mind properly, one must first take control of attention. The world is filled with distractions, and most people scatter their mental energy across countless trivial pursuits. But success belongs to the person who can bring their attention into alignment with a single, definite aim. Just as water under pressure can cut through steel, the focused mind can cut through obstacles that seem impossible. Proper direction requires discipline, but it rewards that discipline with compounding growth. Each day of focused thought builds upon the last until the mind becomes a well-trained servant that produces ideas, solutions, and strategies almost effortlessly. The mind is both soil and seed. Whatever is planted will grow. If fear, doubt, and limitation are sown, failure will bloom. But if faith, purpose, and determination are planted, the harvest will be abundance. The richest resource on earth is not buried in mines or stored in vaults. It is alive within you, waiting to be directed toward the life you desire. Wealth begins in thought long before it is seen in reality. Every fortune, every business empire, every creative masterpiece has its roots in the invisible realm of the mind. Before a skyscraper rises, an architect sees it clearly on paper and even more vividly in imagination. Before a company grows into global influence, its founder holds the seed of the idea with conviction and nurtures it until it takes shape. Wealth is first conceived as a possibility, then strengthened by belief, and finally manifested through persistent action. To assume wealth is only material is to misunderstand its true origin. The visible riches are merely the shadow of invisible thought made real. When a person begins to think abundantly, something changes in the way they perceive the world. Obstacles turn into opportunities, scarcity turns into challenge, and problems transform into puzzles waiting for solutions. This shift does not occur overnight, but it begins with a deliberate decision to think differently. The one who constantly dwells on limitation can only see lack reflected in their reality. Meanwhile, the one who disciplines the mind to focus on prosperity, growth, and contribution sets into motion the unseen forces that attract ideas, people, and circumstances aligned with wealth. The outer world eventually organizes itself to mirror the dominant thought of the inner world. Consider the pioneers who transformed industries. Henry Ford first imagined the possibility of a car for the average person when automobiles were considered luxuries only for the wealthy. His vision seemed impossible to many, yet it began in thought, strengthened into belief, and manifested into a company that revolutionized the modern age. The same principle applies to every individual, regardless of circumstance. Wealth does not ask where you started, only whether you are willing to conceive it, believe it, and act upon it with faith. The poorest man in money may already be rich in imagination, and with proper direction, that wealth of thought eventually becomes tangible abundance. Directing thought toward wealth requires clarity of desire. Vague wishes and idle daydreams do not carry the force of conviction necessary to bring them into reality. The mind must hold a clear and definite picture of what is desired, then reinforce it daily with focus and discipline. From that clarity springs motivation, and from motivation comes sustained effort. Wealth manifests not through sudden luck but through the consistent application of thought translated into action. Just as a seed planted in fertile ground grows in its own season, thoughts of abundance planted in the mind grow into opportunities, relationships, and achievements that align with them. Wealth begins long before it is visible, because thought precedes form. The richest resource a person can possess is not what they hold in their hands, but what they cultivate in their minds. If the mind remains fixed on prosperity, on service, on creation, it becomes only a matter of time before the invisible thought crystallizes into visible wealth that can be measured, touched, and shared. Rich people trade excuses for responsibility. This single shift in mindset marks the difference between those who struggle and those who thrive. Excuses are comforting to the unsuccessful because they shift blame outward. They place the fault on circumstances, on other people, on timing, or on luck. Responsibility, on the other hand, is uncomfortable at first because it forces a person to look inward and accept that their results are a reflection of their choices. Wealthy people understand that excuses may protect the ego for a moment, but they destroy growth in the long run. Responsibility may sting at first, but it empowers an individual to change, to act, and to create new outcomes. Excuses sound reasonable to the ear, but they are poison to the mind. I didn't have the right education. I wasn't born into money. I don't have the connections. All of these statements may contain fragments of truth, yet they do nothing to alter reality. They keep a person locked in the same place, rehearsing limitations instead of finding solutions. Rich people, however, see the same obstacles and ask, "What can I do about it?" That simple question transforms energy from complaining into problem solving. By trading excuses for responsibility, they shift from being victims of circumstance to creators of opportunity. Responsibility does not mean that life is always fair or that challenges vanish. It means taking ownership of how one responds to those challenges. Many wealthy individuals began with disadvantages far greater than those who remained stuck. The difference was not in opportunity, but in perspective. Where most see a reason to quit, the successful see a reason to adapt. Where others surrender, they persist. They understand that every excuse avoided is another step closer to freedom. Responsibility is the price of independence, and the wealthy are willing to pay it daily. This mindset also shapes habits. The one who embraces responsibility wakes up early, manages time, invests effort, and continually learns, because they know no one else will do it for them. The one who clings to excuses, waits for help, complains about luck, and spends energy blaming instead of building. Over time, the difference in results becomes vast. The responsible individual creates wealth not just in money, but in confidence, resilience, and influence. The excuser remains stagnant, always waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive. Responsibility is power disguised as duty. When a person claims ownership of their choices, they gain control over their destiny. They may stumble, but they learn. They may fail, but they rise. Every lesson compounds into wisdom, and every effort compounds into results. Excuses, however, offer no such return. They give comfort today, but steal tomorrow. Rich people understand this, and that is why they trade excuses for responsibility, for in that trade lies the very foundation of freedom and the building blocks of lasting wealth. Discipline is more valuable than talent. Talent may open a door, but without discipline, it cannot keep it open. Natural ability is a gift, something a person may be born with, but discipline is a choice, cultivated through effort, persistence, and self-control. Many people are gifted with intelligence, creativity, or skill, but the world is full of wasted talent because those gifts were never harnessed with consistency. Discipline takes whatever talent exists, great or small, and multiplies it. It bridges the gap between potential and achievement, turning raw ability into mastery and fleeting inspiration into lasting success. Talent can shine for a moment, but discipline endures for a lifetime. A talented musician who refuses to practice will be surpassed by a disciplined learner who practices every day. An intelligent student who avoids study will fall behind a less gifted peer who commits to steady work. Discipline outperforms talent because it does not rely on mood, convenience, or natural ease. It shows up day after day, regardless of feeling, regardless of obstacles. Talent may set the stage, but discipline ensures the performance continues until the curtain closes. Those who rely only on their gifts eventually tire, while those who cultivate discipline grow stronger with time. The most successful people in history were not always the most talented, but they were almost always the most disciplined. Thomas Edison admitted he was not a genius, but he credited his persistence and steady work habits for his many inventions. Athletes who dominate their fields do not rely solely on natural strength or speed. They train relentlessly, building endurance and sharpening skill beyond what talent alone could sustain. In every field, discipline is the unseen engine that drives greatness. Without it, talent is like a powerful car without fuel. It looks impressive but goes nowhere. Discipline also shapes character in ways talent cannot. It develops patience, resilience, and the ability to endure discomfort in pursuit of something greater. Talent often creates pride, leading some to believe they can succeed without effort, but discipline humbles and strengthens, teaching the value of persistence. It forms habits that compound into extraordinary results over time. A person who masters discipline gains the ability to direct their life with purpose, rather than drifting on the waves of circumstance and emotion. With discipline, one learns that progress is not always exciting or glamorous, but it is always rewarding in the end. Talent is finite, but discipline is limitless. Talent may be inherited, but discipline can be learned by anyone who chooses it. A person of modest ability but extraordinary discipline will outlast and outperform the naturally gifted who lack consistency. That is why discipline is more valuable than talent. It is the great equalizer, the force that turns ordinary individuals into extraordinary achievers, and it is the trait that ensures that whatever one begins will be carried through to completion. The formula works for anyone, regardless of background or circumstance. Success does not discriminate, and the laws that govern achievement are impartial, just as gravity pulls equally on every object no matter its size or shape. The principles that create wealth, growth, and fulfillment are available to all who choose to apply them. History is filled with men and women who rose from poverty, obscurity, and disadvantage to build lives of abundance and influence. Their stories are proof that the formula is not reserved for the privileged few but open to every individual willing to commit to its practice. Circumstances may influence where a person begins, but they do not dictate where a person must end. One individual may be born into wealth, while another begins with nothing, yet the one who applies discipline, focus, and persistence will inevitably surpass the one who wastes their advantages. The formula does not bend for status or favor. It responds only to effort and alignment. A seed planted in fertile soil will grow, whether planted by a king or a laborer, and so it is with success. The soil is the mind, the seed is the thought, and the growth is determined by care, persistence, and faith. Examples of this truth are abundant. Entrepreneurs who began with no money but built global empires did so because they obeyed the principles of vision, persistence, and value creation. Innovators who lacked formal education changed the world because they were driven by curiosity, focus, and relentless practice. Leaders who once stood unnoticed became influential because they developed clarity of purpose and the discipline to follow it through. Their circumstances could have been excuses, but they chose to view them as fuel. They proved that background may explain where you start, but it does not decide where you will finish. The formula is simple: decide what you want, believe it is possible, focus your thoughts and actions consistently, and refuse to quit until the result is achieved. Every step compounds, every effort builds upon the last, and in time, the goal that once seemed distant becomes reality. Some may face greater obstacles, but the formula remains unchanged. For every difficulty, there is a corresponding opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. What matters is not the weight of the challenge, but the decision to keep moving in spite of it. Those who understand this truth stop comparing their beginnings with others and start focusing on the principles within their control. They know that wealth begins in thought, that responsibility is the foundation of freedom, and that discipline turns dreams into reality. The formula is timeless and universal. It cares nothing for age, race, upbringing, or circumstance. It rewards the doer, not the dreamer, the discipline, not the excuse maker. Anyone, anywhere, at any time, can apply it and transform their life, for the laws of success are as constant as the laws of nature, and they never fail the one who truly lives by them. Daily habits create future fortunes. Wealth, success, and achievement are never the product of sudden chance, but the slow accumulation of consistent actions repeated over time. Every habit is like a deposit in an invisible account that compounds quietly until the results become undeniable. A small choice made today may appear insignificant, yet multiplied across months and years, it shapes the direction of one's entire life. Those who build their days with discipline, purpose, and clarity eventually find themselves in possession of opportunities and fortunes that others call luck, when in reality it is the inevitable harvest of steady habits. A person does not rise to greatness by a single extraordinary effort, but by ordinary efforts made extraordinary through consistency. Reading a few pages each day develops a mind that grows sharper year after year. Saving a small amount regularly creates wealth that multiplies through time. Practicing a skill daily transforms a novice into a master. These habits may feel small in the moment, but they build invisible momentum that compounds into visible results. Just as drops of water carve valleys into stone, repeated habits carve destiny into a life. Fortune favors those who build wisely, one day at a time. Habits are powerful because they operate quietly, without requiring constant decision. Once established, they carry a person forward almost automatically. A disciplined individual no longer struggles each morning to decide whether to rise early or pursue their goals. The habit has already made the decision for them. In the same way, negative habits quietly destroy potential without resistance. Procrastination, overspending, and neglect may not ruin a life in a day, but over time they drain energy, wealth, and opportunity until little remains. Habits, whether good or bad, are investments, and every investment yields a return. The wealthy understand this truth deeply. They protect their mornings, knowing that how they begin each day determines its outcome. They cultivate routines of learning, growth, and productivity because they know that their future depends on today's repetitions. Success is not a mystery to them, it is a practice. Just as an athlete trains daily for strength or endurance, those who build fortunes train daily in discipline, focus, and clarity of purpose. Their lives may not always appear extraordinary in each moment, but the compounding effect of their daily choices builds extraordinary outcomes over time. Anyone can transform their future by transforming their habits. The formula is simple. Identify the habits that weaken you and replace them with habits that strengthen you. Begin with one small, constructive change, repeated until it becomes second nature, and then add another. In time, a life once ruled by chance and distraction becomes a life ruled by design and intention. Daily habits create future fortunes because they determine the trajectory of thought, action, and character. And in the end, fortune is nothing more than the reflection of what one has consistently chosen to do day after day. Most people fail because they chase comfort instead of growth. The desire for comfort is natural, for it promises ease, safety, and familiarity, but it is also the very trap that keeps people from achieving their true potential. Growth, on the other hand, demands discomfort. It requires stepping into the unknown, enduring struggle, and confronting fear. Success is never found within the walls of comfort, it exists beyond them, where challenges stretch the mind and discipline molds the character. Those who pursue comfort settle for mediocrity, while those who embrace growth rise to levels others believe impossible. Comfort whispers lies that sound sweet. Stay here. You've done enough? Why take risks when you're safe where you are? Rest a little longer. You deserve it. But every moment spent in this false security robs a person of the strength they could have developed. Growth does not occur in the absence of strain. A muscle only strengthens when it is pushed beyond its limit, and in the same way, a person only grows when they move beyond the ease of what is familiar. The wealthy, the successful, the accomplished, these are people who learn to value growth above comfort, who understood that long-term fulfillment far outweighs short-term ease. Failure follows comfort because comfort breeds stagnation. A person who avoids challenge avoids progress. They may preserve temporary peace, but at the cost of their dreams. The world around them changes, opportunities move on, and while they remain still, life passes by. Growth requires sacrifice, the sacrifice of laziness, excuses, and distractions. It requires effort in the present to secure rewards in the future. Those who seek only comfort end up paying the greater price of regret, while those who embrace growth enjoy the compounded returns of their effort and courage. The pursuit of growth demands a shift in mindset. Instead of asking, "What feels easiest right now?" one must ask, "What will make me stronger, wiser, and better prepared for tomorrow?" This does not mean rejecting all rest or pleasure, but refusing to allow them to dominate life's direction. Growth comes from challenges embraced, skills sharpened, and goals pursued with consistency. Every difficult decision taken today becomes the foundation of strength tomorrow. Those who commit to growth discover that discomfort, once feared, becomes their ally, shaping resilience and opening doors that comfort could never provide. The difference between those who fail and those who succeed is often this simple choice. Will I settle for comfort, or will I strive for growth? The successful choose growth repeatedly, even when it is hard, even when it is lonely, even when it requires sacrifice. They know that comfort is fleeting, but growth is permanent. They understand that failure is not falling short, but refusing to grow. Most people fail because they chase comfort instead of growth, but those who choose growth day after day discover that the discomfort of effort is far lighter than the burden of regret. Success requires focus on service, not selfishness. The greatest fortunes, the most influential legacies, and the most fulfilling lives have always been built upon the principle of serving others. Selfish ambition may bring temporary gains, but it cannot sustain itself because it isolates and diminishes trust. Service, however, creates lasting value. It solves problems, meets needs, and uplifts people, and in doing so it creates opportunities, wealth, and influence for the one who gives. Every thriving business exists because it serves customers. Every respected leader is honored because they serve their people. Every legacy that endures is remembered for the contributions made to others, not for what was hoarded for oneself. Selfishness seeks to take, but service seeks to give. This is why selfishness eventually collapses. A person consumed by personal gain eventually loses allies, reputation, and credibility. Service, on the other hand, multiplies rewards, for when you help enough people achieve their goals, they in turn help you achieve yours. Wealth is not the primary goal, but the byproduct of service. The one who invents a medicine that saves lives, the one who creates technology that simplifies work, the one who builds systems that make life easier. All of them grow rich because they first focused on contribution. Their service created ripples of value that return to them multiplied. To focus on service is also to align with a deeper purpose. Selfish goals often run dry because they lack meaning beyond personal comfort. Service fuels persistence because when difficulties arise, the thought of helping others provides strength to keep going. The entrepreneur who works late into the night does so not merely for profit, but to deliver something of worth to customers. The teacher who dedicates energy to students does so because their service carries a higher meaning. In every case, service sustains motivation in ways selfishness never can. Selfishness ends when pleasure ends, but service endures because it touches lives beyond one's own. Those who succeed in the greatest measure understand that the market, society, and even life itself reward value given, not value withheld. To serve means to see beyond oneself, to anticipate needs, to solve problems, and to give more than expected. It is not weakness but strength, for it builds relationships of trust and loyalty that selfishness can never buy. Over time, those who practice service naturally accumulate influence, respect, and wealth, for they become indispensable to others. Selfishness burns bridges, but service builds empires. The person who devotes themselves to service becomes a magnet for opportunity because people are always drawn to those who genuinely help them grow. Success is not measured by how much one takes, but by how much one contributes. The wealthiest and happiest individuals are not those who kept the most for themselves, but those who gave the most to others. Service plants seeds of prosperity that grow into harvests far larger than the effort invested. The truth is timeless and universal. Success requires focus on service, not selfishness. The secret is simple, but only those who practice it see results. Life is filled with timeless principles that promise success, growth, and fulfillment, yet many overlook them because they appear too plain, too obvious, or too ordinary. Human nature often seeks complexity, believing that great rewards must come from mysterious formulas or hidden shortcuts. But the truth is that simplicity is the foundation of every lasting achievement. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stagnant is not knowledge of the secret, but the willingness to act on it consistently. Simplicity, combined with discipline, produces results that seem extraordinary to those who ignored the practice. Most people hear the simple truths of success many times in their lives. Set a clear goal, work at it daily. Improve yourself constantly, serve others, and never quit. These are not hidden laws. They are spoken in classrooms, written in books, and echoed in conversations. Yet, despite hearing them, most do not act. They dismiss the simplicity, searching instead for some undiscovered method that will bypass effort. The successful, however, recognize the power in repetition and consistency. They embrace the simple disciplines and carry them out day after day until the results compound into something remarkable. The secret is not complicated knowledge, but faithful application. Practicing the secret requires patience, for results do not arrive instantly. A person who plants a seed does not expect fruit the next morning, but they trust the process, water the soil, and wait for growth. In the same way, the individual who applies the principles of success must act with faith, knowing that each day's effort is building toward a harvest unseen in the moment. Those who quit early never witness the results because they abandon the practice before the breakthrough. Those who persist discover that the simple disciplines, when carried out over time, yield rewards far beyond expectation. The simplicity of the secret is also its greatest challenge. Because it does not demand genius or privilege, anyone can apply it, which means everyone has the responsibility to do so. This responsibility frightens many, for it removes the comfort of excuses. If success is truly simple, then failure is not due to circumstances but to neglect. Accepting this truth requires honesty, and honesty demands change. Only those who are willing to face this responsibility with courage find the strength to practice the secret faithfully. In doing so, they separate themselves from the masses who wait, wish, and wonder but never act. Results belong only to the practitioner. The secret may be shared, written, or spoken 1,000 times, but until it is lived, it remains only words. Action is the bridge between knowing and becoming. Those who practice the simple truth of goal setting, self-discipline, and persistence create lives that others admire, while those who ignore it remain trapped in mediocrity. The secret is simple, but only those who practice it see results. The path to success is not shrouded in mystery, nor reserved for a chosen few. It is governed by principles as certain as gravity, principles that respond to anyone who applies them with faith and persistence. Wealth begins in thought, grows through discipline, and is sustained through service. Excuses must be traded for responsibility, comfort must give way to growth, and daily habits must be aligned with the vision of a greater future. The formula is timeless and universal, simple enough for all to understand, yet powerful enough to transform any life it touches. Remember always that success is not an accident, it is not luck, and it is not chance. It is the natural result of directing the mind with clarity, practicing discipline with consistency, and committing to service with sincerity. The secret is simple, but only those who live it each day will ever see its extraordinary rewards.